Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is another video where I will be talking about the books I'm reading. Instead of doing a monthly wrap-up, I've started recording my thoughts on the books I read as I go. And for now I quite like that format, so I'm gonna continue in the same way. I am right now reading Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. I just started that yesterday, and this is about a 17-year-old black girl who lives in Oakland, California, and she lives in an apartment block together with her older brother. Her dad has died, her mom is not in the picture at the moment, so she lives with her older brother, and she also takes care of a 9-year-old Trevor, who's a boy in their apartment block whose mom isn't really around because she is dealing with addiction. And the book starts when Kiara, the girl, she finds a notice on her door that their rent is going to be increased, and since they are already struggling to make ends meet, she's really worried about getting evicted because they won't be able to afford the rent unless they find a way to make some more money. And she quickly realizes there's money to be made in prostitution, so she starts nightcrawling, what the title says, walking the streets to find men who will pay her for sex. I picked up this book because I heard a lot of good things about it, and also because in the Feminist Reading Challenge there is a prompt to read a book on sex work, so that would fit perfectly for that. I think this is obviously going to be a very difficult read if you look at the subject matter. So far I think this is really well written. I really love the writing style. It has this really poetic writing style, and by that I mean that the author is constantly surprising me with her sentence choices. I'm constantly rereading sentences because they are just interestingly structured, or just a little bit different, and surprising in the way she phrases things. So I'm really enjoying that. I think that type of writing style has a tendency to get a bit overwrought, but for now it's just got that balance exactly right, and I'm really enjoying it, if enjoying is the right word to use for this book. I am about 2/3 of the way in Nightcrawling right now, and there's just this one thing that I keep on thinking about, and that is it okay if a book that is dealing with such a difficult topic, that a book is so beautifully written as well. This book deals with some really heavy topics, like sexual abuse, like police brutality. There's a lot of people who are in a position of power who abuse that power, and who are getting away with some horrible things. It has a really hard topic, but then the writing is just really, really beautiful. And I keep on thinking to myself, if that's okay, like can you use language that is so beautiful to describe something that is so horrific? Does that take away from the gravity of the situation, of what this book is about? Does it almost romanticize it? Or is this poetic language the only way you can write about it, the only way to make it palatable? Does it show that does it show the importance of art in the world? Is it a way to show that you can still find beauty in art and in poetry when someone's real life can be so incredibly dark and bleak? And do you need to use this sort of delicate language to talk about something that is so difficult? So I'm not sure where I stand yet. I keep on sort of going backwards and forwards and thinking like this is really inappropriate, or it is actually the only way to do it and very appropriate. It's just something that I keep on thinking about when reading this book, because the language is just, it's such a stark contrast with the subject matter of the book. I have finished Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. I did enjoy this a lot, although it didn't end as strongly as it started, unfortunately. I think the poetic writing style got a little bit too much for me in the end. I felt there were just metaphors and similes on every page, and I felt that could have been toned down a little bit. In the beginning of the book it felt really refreshing, and she was making interesting word choices and sentence structures, but in the end I felt like I knew the trick and I was a bit done with it. I think she tells a really interesting and important story, and something she mentioned in the afterword as well is that she gives voice to a group of people who are often unheard, and by that she means sex workers, and especially sex workers of color. So I think it's important that she tells this story, and or it's important that someone tells that story. And you can see that she is making this book very political, and she's trying to convey a message with it. But I think, unfortunately, that message sort of overshadows the actual book itself. I feel like the characters aren't always that well developed. Especially sort of the side characters, it seems like they're more there to convey a plot point or to convey a message rather than them being fully fleshed characters. In the beginning of the book the characters got a little bit more time and you got to know them a little bit, but then in the end it felt like things were rushed through to get to the end of the plot, and the character development sort of got by the wayside, which I think was a shame. So yeah, definitely not a perfect book, but still one I am really glad I've read. I think the author wrote this book when she was 17 or 18 years old, so very young. So keeping that in mind, it is an incredible accomplishment to write a book like this. And I do think it's worth your time, just it has some flaws. So keep that in mind. I have 2 books I want to start in soon. I've picked a non-fiction book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This book actually came up in the TBR spin game. The pick for May, where we are now, is a very simple one, and that was to read a book with an even number of pages. So I decided to pick up this one, Why We Sleep. This is a non-fiction book all on sleep, and I really was quite in the mood to read some science, health related book, and I'm hoping to learn some interesting things from this. And then I'm also starting Fool's Fate by Hobb. This is the 3rd book in the 3rd trilogy of an overarching series that I've been slowly making my way through. I've read the previous book, I think more than a year ago, so I hope I can get back into it, and I still remember enough of the 2nd book that it doesn't confuse me too much. But with the previous books I've always had quite a big time gap in between them, and that was always fine. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. I don't read a lot of fantasy, but this series is like a real comfort read for me, and I'm really looking forward to go back into this world. So yeah, I'll update you when I've read some more. I have finished another book. I've been listening to Loveless by Oseman on audio, and this, it was fine, it was okay. I'm just not the audience for a YA book. So this is about a girl called Georgia, and we meet her when she just starts university, and it's a book about her dealing with love and relationships and sort of realizing that she has never been in love and she's not interested in sex. This is basically about her finding out she is asexual and aromantic. And I think the problem for me in this was something I often find in YA novels, is that everything is explained and there isn't much happening between the lines. Everything is just spelled out on the page. Georgia is obviously going through some things, finding out her sexuality, but the whole process of that is just laid out word for word on the page, which is just something I don't really like. And I felt the author wanted to explain as much as she could on asexuality in this book, and that made it feel a bit unnatural. I felt like, sometimes you see these Instagram posts with like, 10 things she didn't know about asexuality, and she tried to put that into like a conversation she was having with one of the other characters. So yeah, that just felt very unnatural to me. I did sort of like the storyline. I think it was a fun storyline. There's some fun side characters in this book. In fact, I think I was more interested in their story. But yeah, all in all, this was just okay. And then I am also still reading Why We Sleep and Fool's Fate. And I'm having a really good time with these two books. I love Why We Sleep because it's just teaching me all these new facts, and I'm just underlining lots and already thinking about how I could implement what I learn in my job. And I keep on wanting to tell people about everything I learned in this book, so that I think is a great sign for non-fiction. And then Fool's Fate, I just got right back into the story. I read the previous book in this series more than a year ago, but I just got back into it within a couple of pages, and I'm really, really having a good time with this one. Right, it's been a minute since I've sat down and did an update. You won't notice because it's all going to be in the same video. But I think my last update was about 10 days ago. So I think I've added a clip of some birds I saw yesterday. So yesterday was Ascension Day, which is a national holiday here in the Netherlands. So most people have a day off. And so did I, and a tradition is to go on a very early morning walk or bike ride right at the crack of dawn. So I got up at like 5 a.m. and went for a walk in the same sort of nature area that I think I showed in my last video, and it just ended up being a sort of bird watching walk, which was really nice. I know very little about birds. I mean, I can like identify the top 10 birds you can find in a city, but that's about it. But I did enjoy sort of trying to find all the birds, because I could hear a lot of them, but they were sometimes a bit hard to spot, but I did manage to capture some on video. Anyway, I've also finished 2 books. One I listened on audio, which was a Dutch book called Weerlicht by Jante Wortel. And this did take me by surprise. I think first of all because it was a book that dealt heavily with an eating disorder, which wasn't mentioned on the cover anywhere or on the blurb anywhere at all. So I think that was a bit of a lack in the publisher, because this eating disorder was basically a part of the story on every page of the book. So I think they should have mentioned it. It was a story about a family who were going on a holiday in Norway. It was a family of a mom and dad and 2 teenage children, a son and a daughter. You very soon find out the daughter has an eating disorder, and the mother also has some form of chronic illness. You're not told exactly what it is, but she uses an oxygen tank, so that is probably the main marker that you notice through the book. And they go on this holiday to Norway sort of against the advice of the treatment team of Leila, the daughter, because they don't think she's quite ready yet to undertake this big holiday. But yeah, they go anyway, and some events happen, and you can soon see sort of the impact Leila's eating disorder and also their mother's chronic illness has on the whole family. And I think overall the whole storyline didn't really interest me that much, but I did really appreciate how the family dynamic was depicted. I believe the author draws from her own experience. I'm not sure if she had an eating disorder when she was younger, or she or someone very close to her, but I think it depicts really well how that influenced the whole family, and how it dictates everything in their lives, how everything has to be scheduled around her eating. What really surprised me as well is that it was one of the most realistic depictions of teenagers in a book I've ever read. Often in books, teenagers are portrayed either too childlike or like way too intelligent and way too sophisticated. But in this book, I think the author got it exactly right, especially the dynamics between the 2 siblings, the way they interacted with each other, the way you could see they loved each other, but they also like couldn't stand to be around each other and were constantly in each other's hair. I think she got it exactly right, the way that teenagers can be incredibly annoying sometimes, really self-centered, and you can see, like, you know, their frontal cortex is just not developed as well yet. That makes them, you know, make decisions that can sometimes be incredibly frustrating. So yeah, it was very much a 3-star book for me. I yeah, I really liked I really liked some aspects of it, but just overall I didn't care for it that much. But yeah, the way teenagers were described in this book was just really spot on. And then I've also finished Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, which was a non-fiction book all on sleep. And this was super interesting. In this he talks about the benefits of sleep and the consequences of a lack of sleep. And you know, I knew that sleep was beneficial, but I wasn't quite aware to what extent sleep is beneficial, and also to what extent a lack of sleep, and not even like you know, proper insomnia, but even if you like sleep half an hour less or an hour less every night, like what the consequences of that are on your health, on your mental health. Yeah, it was super fascinating. I think this is something I can really take into work as well, because I work in healthcare, and you know, obviously we educate people on the benefits of healthy eating and exercise, but sleep isn't really talked about that much. So I think I can take a lot from this in my work, but also obviously in my personal life. I feel like I've been inspired to like promote healthy sleeping. I mean, I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but you know, in a big part of our culture, sleep is sort of seen as something that is you know, for the weak. You know, there's a certain pride that people have in saying like, oh, I only need this much sleep, or you know, I didn't get enough sleep last night. And I think we sort of need to take back in like bragging about how much sleep you got last night, if you got like a lot of sleep. We need to like take away the whole hustle culture and get more sleep. So yeah, very interesting, learned a lot. Would recommend this book because it will teach you a lot. So yeah, that's the books I've read for now. I'm still reading Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. It is like the last book in a trilogy, so it is a bit more action-packed than the previous one, and you know, there's a lot of twists and turns. And even though I've read the previous installment like more than a year ago, yeah, I feel like right in the story, and you know, I'm flipping the pages, and I can't wait to see what happens. And then I've also started reading East of Eden with my read-along. I've only just started like the first 4 or 5 chapters, but I'm really enjoying that as well. I love how you can really see he's like setting up the foundations for the story, and I'm like underlining a lot of things, thinking like, oh, this is going to be relevant later on the story. And we're kind of early in our read along, so I haven't heard that much of the other readers yet, but I think I will soon, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they think of the book. I have just finished another book, and that is Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. Sensitive viewers should look away for a few seconds because the book got damaged, which is a shame, but I'll see what I can do with some sticky tape. This is the final book in the Tourneyman trilogy, which is the 3rd trilogy in this overarching series, The Realm of the Elderlings. So I'm not sure how much I can tell about this book plot-wise, but I really enjoyed this. I really love this series. Yeah, it was the last book in this particular trilogy, so that meant it was a little bit more action-packed, especially towards the end, and yeah, it had some more like big reveals. Robin Hobb's style is really quite slow for a fantasy series. It's a lot more about the character development and a lot more about the like 2 different magic systems that are in these books and how they influence the characters in these books. So yeah, it's a lot more about that, but then this book definitely had some sort of shocking twists in it as well. So in the whole series, the first trilogy followed a set of characters, and then the second trilogy was about another set of characters, and this one goes back to the first book more. So this is more of a follow-up on the first book, and I really enjoyed being with those characters again. And then we mainly follow Fitz and the Fool, which are the 2 like main characters, and I really love their dynamic. But then there's also some other old characters that return in this particular book, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, so I can't really say that much about it, but yeah, I really love this, and I'm looking forward to starting the next sort of trilogy in this series, which I think goes back to like the characters in the second trilogy. If you are still following me, it'll probably be a while before I pick it up, but yeah, I really love that. I have still I think about 7 books to go in the entire series, so yeah, I'm set for the next couple of years, so that's great. Yeah, that's The Fool's Fate. Next I'm going to pick up The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. Kim over at Middle of the Book March is doing a book club of sort of backlist books, and she put out a list of every title she wants to read this year, and The Namesake was the one book I also had on my TBR, so I'm going to join in for that one. I have read some short story collections by Jhumpa Lahiri, which I really enjoyed, but I've never read a full-length novel, so yeah, I'm hoping I will enjoy it just as much as her short stories.